This is a bill where people who live here in our country will be treated without amnesty, but without animosity.
It's a pardon to immigration law breakers, and it's a reward with the objective of their crime.
Those are some of the sharply divided opinions, even among Republicans, about the new immigration reform bill that was announced this week. And it's time now for our Sunday gang. Britt Hume, Washington managing editor of Fox News, and Fox News contributors Mara Liasson of National Public Radio, Bill Kristol of the Weekly Standard, and Juan Williams, also from National Public Radio. Well, congressional Republicans, Democrats, and the White House all reached agreement on a comprehensive immigration reform package this week, which would first try to enforce the borders, and then after certain triggers were met, would provide for guest workers and for a path to citizenship. Britt, what do you think of the deal?
Well, I think that the thing you didn't mention there was that once those border measures are taken and the so-called triggers have been pulled, there is this provision for getting what's called a Z visa, which is basically an immediate granting of legal right to be here. And that's the part that has people screaming that there's amnesty. I think it doesn't meet the definition of amnesty very well, but that's the term that's being tossed around. I think, however, Chris, that the bill will pass the Senate. I think that Senator Kennedy will bring along enough Democrats and there'll be enough Republicans to go with him to pass the Senate. It could, however, be in some trouble in the House, and we'll just have to wait and see. House leaders are being very cautious in what they're saying about it.
Yeah, I think, look, this is a real bipartisan compromise, and one of the definitions of that is it's getting flack from both the left and the right. And I agree with Britt. I think it does have a good chance in the Senate. I think it's very unclear if it'll pass the House or if some version passes the House, whether there actually will be a bill signed in the end. But I do think there's a question for people who say this is amnesty, which is, would anything short of deportation be amnesty to them? And I suspect it probably would be. So the question remains what you're going to do with the 12 million people who are in this country illegally. And this bill lays out a very long stretch of hurdles and obstacles for them to get over, to the point where some immigration advocacy groups are even questioning them. They certainly don't consider it amnesty or a free ride. But I do think this bill has a very, very tough road ahead of it.
Bill, when we've talked about this in the past, you have generally been pro-comprehensive immigration reform, and I get a lot of email from conservatives who criticize you from the right. What do they not get that you apparently do get?
Well, no, I'm a liberal on immigration, and I thought last year's bill should have been passed. I think it would have been decent law and would have been awfully good for a Republican president politically and a Republican Congress to show they could deal with the problem. I'm not sure this year's bill deserves to be passed. I've been trying to study up on it. It's not so easy. It was released late Friday night. You try to go online and you read about it, and it's very complicated and confusing. There seems to be an exception to the triggers that might swallow up the triggers right in the very first section. Section 601H is an exception. I mean,
yeah, I've been studying that as well.
No, but here's what's striking. Here's what's striking. Last year's bill went through the Senate Judiciary Committee. There was a huge debate. There were amendments. It went to the floor. There was over 2 weeks of debate with amendments. This thing has been produced in private. It was unveiled Friday night, and they want a cloture vote tomorrow night. I really think, on this, I'm with the opponents. This is an inappropriate way to deal with such a major issue. This thing should be out there for a few weeks for people to analyze. It should probably come through committee, or at least should go to the floor in such a way that it can be fully amended and debated. There's no reason for a cloture vote on this tomorrow night. So I am, in this instance, I think, I'm more skeptical about this year's bill than last year's bill, and I think procedurally, they've embraced something that's really hard to defend.
Well, I think that the reason that they're trying to do it quickly, Bill, is because there's a very narrow window of opportunity here, and they're trying to build momentum. If you let this bill sit there in the sun for a long time, I think it's going to shrivel up because there are opponents standing on either side. Looking at it from the left, there are the church groups and organized labor. Organized labor says you're going to create a subclass of workers. The people who come in as guest workers can only stay for 2 years, and they've got to go. They're going to drive down wages. The churches are saying, wait a second, what about family reunification? Family reunification used to be the hallmark of America's immigration policy. Now you're going to have a point system that rewards people who have high levels of education or high levels of skill. And you know what the right is up to. The xenophobes on the right, oh, we don't like it, it's not the America we knew. They're just anti-immigration.
Letting this bill sit there in the sun is called democracy. No. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, Justice Brand. I said, let people read the bill for a few weeks and debate it.
Nobody, look, it's going to have to go to the House, and it's going to have to be some kind of conference.
The United States Senate is the place which has open rules that allow for debate and amendments. And a cloture vote tomorrow night is ridiculous. And I think it suggests that the authors of this bill have no confidence that it can stand up to real scrutiny.
All the cloture vote will allow is the bill to be brought to the floor. As I understand it.
This week.
But there will be all kinds of time for debate and discussion of this bill.
Do they say they want to pass it this week?
Well, maybe they can, but look, this bill isn't going to get through the United States Congress into the president's desk without there being a tremendous debate about it, and without every detail of what's in it is going to be dragged out and examined and discussed. I don't think we're in any danger of having something snuck through in the middle of the night that's going to change our immigration policy forever. It's just too big an issue.
Not surprisingly, the bill and the issue is getting all mixed up into presidential politics. Mara, former Governor Romney, who supported comprehensive immigration reform last year, including a path to citizenship, is now very quickly against this bill and has even put out a television ad stating his opposition. Let's watch.
Legal immigration is great, but illegal immigration, that we've got to end. Thank you. And amnesty is not the way to do it.
Mara, is that another case where Romney's position has evolved?
I think so. He didn't say so in the ad, but it's clear that he feels this bill is amnesty, and it sounds like he is saying anything short of deportation is amnesty. He clearly reflects what a lot of people in the Republican base think. That might be one of the reasons why he's doing a little bit better in the polls in Iowa and New Hampshire. I mean, he has stuck to a very, very disciplined strategy. He has a pretty clear idea of what he wants to do in this campaign, which is hew to the right on almost every issue, which is, he mentioned in the debate, with the one exception of No Child Left Behind. But, yeah, I think that this is an issue that really drives Republicans apart, and it's a very hard issue. I think, although Rudy Giuliani hasn't said exactly what he thinks about this bill, he has said in speech after speech that he is for a path to citizenship, and of course John McCain was involved in this bill, so that puts Romney clearly opposed to them.
Bill, and then there's Senator McCain, who in the final negotiating session up on Capitol Hill this week reportedly, but it's come from a bunch of sources, swore at his fellow Republican Senator John Cornyn of Texas, and then when challenged by Cornyn said, I know more about this than anybody else in the room. McCain's staff denies it. What do you make of all that?
I think it will not help Senator McCain in the Republican presidential primary. Not his position. He's had this position for a long time. It's one I'm sympathetic to. Pretty liberal position on immigration. It's this notion that Ron also repeated, that this thing has to be jammed through. Senator McCain said Thursday at the press conference, we can't let this sit out there too long. It'll get involved in politics. I just think this is a huge, as Britt said, a huge reform. It needs to be debated. And the idea that a senator stands up and says, we negotiated this in private, this now needs to be brought to the floor for cloture tomorrow night, having been unveiled Thursday, and that this thing deserves to be passed quickly without real scrutiny, I think that will sit badly with Republican primary voters.
And I think you got to understand politics, and especially the politics coming from President Bush, who's a big fan of this deal, is that you've got to try to accelerate it so that you get some momentum and then get it to the House and let the debate. There's nobody trying to stifle debate here.
The House does not bring bills to the floor with an open rule. There will not be a chance to amend this bill on the floor of the House.
All right, enough procedure. We've got about 20 seconds left. Real quickly, starting with Juan, is this going to end up on the president's desk or not?
Yeah, it will end up on the president's desk because the president is so desperate to have something to build a legacy on, given what's going on in Iraq.
Bill, will this end up on the president's desk?
No.
Mara?
This Senate bill, this particular Senate bill will not end.
Comprehensive immigration reform.
I think probably not.
I think not in this precise form, but I think it's at least 50-50 that a bill will reach the president.
We have to take a quick break.